welcome. It's the last day of the FENS Forum 2022 here at the Paris Convention Centre. People are busying around still. There's lots to do. Perhaps they're looking a little bit worse for wear at the end of the forum, but there are plenty of talks and sessions and things happening today, things to see. But at 2 o'clock, people will be streaming out of Pavilion 7 here to return to countries all over the world. It's a packed podcast today. We find out a little more about one or two of the speakers and learn a bit more about what happened behind the scenes. And of course, today we see a changeover of FENS presidents when Jean-Antoine Giraud hands over the presidency to Irene Tracy, and we'll talk to them later. But now, John Fox is the chair of neuroscience at the University of Rochester in upstate New York, but he's better known at the forum as editor-in-chief of the European Journal of Neuroscience. And I caught up with John yesterday when he explained the vital role of the journal in the life of FENS.
The journal, European Journal of Neuroscience, is the official society journal of FENS, the Federation of European Neuroscience Societies. And the general idea is that the journal supports the science being conducted by the members of FENS, which is, as you know, comprises 33 different countries and 44 societies and counting. And our job as in the journal is to provide a really good forum for rigorous science by our members, and actually really by the world community, neuroscience community, a really good forum for them to put their work out, to have it reviewed by expert scientists, to really help them improve their papers and communicate the work. And then the other really key part of it is that, of course, it's a commercial enterprise too. It generates revenue. And a distinction there that's very important is that a journal like the European Journal of Neuroscience that's society-owned, the revenue it generates comes back into the society. So when anybody shows up to a FENS event, a school, a training, a scholarship, this incredible forum that we're at with over 8,000 people, most of the major funding for that comes from the journal. Every day this week at what's called the Open Theatre, which is a very cool thing where you put on some headphones and get mic'd up and so on, we have a Meet the Editor session. So folks can come see us any day this week, and we answer the questions. I think a lot of youngsters this year, which is phenomenal. Over 60% are students, postdocs. And so for many of them, they're just getting ready to publish their first papers, and so that we can be very helpful in telling them how do you go about it? What does the review process involve? What do you need to look out for? How would your paper be handled? So we love doing that. We love talking about the journal. I have 4 exceptional senior editors that back me up as in the editor-in-chief role. So there's sort of 5 of us. So we'll all be there. Today, actually, we have a session in the Open Theatre on diversity and how a journal in the world of publishing, needs to address the great diversity and inclusion movement that we've had over the last couple of years. What are real practical, tractable things that a publishing house and a journal can do to address inequities, historic inequities? So we've been working very, very hard on that, and it's not like we have all the answers, but we're kind of trying to come up with a top 10 list. So that should be a great session, and I'd love if people came along to it. Yeah.
Now, I was saying, noticing this morning that people's enthusiasm for the forum seems undimmed, but you can definitely tell there's some physical wear and tear going on here. Is that your experience?
No doubt about it. The varicose veins syndrome. Yeah, I mean, it is really, you show up. I mean, I think this has been particularly acute here in Paris this time, right? So you have people, and it's a coming out party. I've never seen energy at a meeting, and I've been doing this a long time. I mean, 30 years going to neuroscience meetings. I've never seen anything like the energy that was here the first couple of days. So in some ways it was completely unsustainable. I mean, there were thousands of people in halls, people sitting on the floors, on top of each other, everything to see talks. So things are starting to equilibrate back to normal, but the energy is still palpable around here. And then the other bit is, right, I mean, you're on your feet all day, walking from this poster to that talk to another poster to dinner. And so, yeah, day 3, day 4, it starts to wear in a little bit. Especially those people who've been out partying, which wouldn't be me, of course.
Of course, I wouldn't even begin to suggest it. John, thank you very much for talking to us. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Oh, absolute pleasure, Malcolm. Thanks very much.
Dementia specialist Dr. Maria Elena Avali is giving the Alba Elsevier Award lecture today, and we spoke to her a little while before the forum started, and she explained her feelings of anticipation.
I am very happy to attend to FENS this year because, first of all, I will be able to meet a lot of people from Europe, which I haven't seen for many years since I left in 2012. And then, well, I think that the program is very exciting. We will learn a lot, not only about neurodegenerative diseases, which is my particular field, but also about neuroscience in general. And another great point of FENS is that young people, usually attend to meet where to do their postdocs. So it's a great opportunity to meet young people, to interchange our research, and probably maybe one of them will be interested in joining our lab in the future. During my first years as a neuroscientist, I was interested in the brain in general. But after my PhD studies, I became more and more interested in dementia. And I think this is due to a personal thing as well, because my grandma, with whom I was very close, developed Alzheimer's disease at 70 years old. So when I moved abroad for my postdoctoral studies, I decided to go in this field, and it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. We still have no cure, but I think we are doing a lot to move towards finding a cure in the next years, hopefully. Dementia in particular are growing fields in the next years. So for young researchers trying to start their careers in neuroscience, I think it's gorgeous, because we are witnessing an incredible amount of discoveries that are coming every week in high impact journals, and it's amazing the technology we have and the resources, bioinformatics, genetic studies. So I think it's incredible opportunity for people interested in dementia to start a career in that field. I think it's the moment to do it.
So I'm joined now by the outgoing president, Jean-Antoine Giraud, and by the incoming president, Irene Tracy, and I get to talk to both of them right now. Jean-Antoine, what are your thoughts now? You look like a man who's almost relaxed, but not quite. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly the feeling. I'm actually really very, very happy with the way the forum is going. I think, in the current situation, we were always a little bit anxious of how it will be possible or it will be successful. And this is a really big success. This is the largest FENS forum ever. This is the largest neuroscience event ever in Europe. So it's really super exciting for us. I think it shows that how well FENS have been developing over the last decades, and how strong neuroscience is in Europe. And it also shows that people, after these 2 years of COVID crisis and distanciation, etc., were really craving to be together again and to interact again. So that's a great satisfaction for me.
Were there any moments that you're prepared to share with us when you had your heart in your throat?
Well, one thing is, unfortunately, we were facing some last-minute cancellation by some people. We were not really seriously ill, of course, but we were positive, so they could not make it. So we managed to organize literally at the almost last minute the Zoom intervention, and we were really wondering how it would fit in the flow of the forum. And I was really relieved that in fact it fitted very well, even the plenary lecture, and in a way it was as good as if the speaker would have been on the stage. Of course, they could not interact with the people in the audience afterwards, that's a limitation, but otherwise it was a big relief to see how well it worked and how well it could be mixed with people on stage.
Coming into this forum this year, what was it that you had in mind that you really wanted to achieve?
we wanted to first have all these people together. I mean, like the young, especially we are very concerned or very interested in the success of the young and early career neuroscientists. So I think we've been more than satisfied to see that there were really many of them. So that was really an objective which was reached. Another one, it was to also draw the attention of people or raise their interest in some new aspects, or not really new, but maybe people are not enough concerned about, for example, the interface between artificial intelligence and neuroscience. And we had a great brain debate about that, which was very accessible, and I hope it was appreciated by the audience. We had also, we started to have sessions on environmental concerns and sustainability of neuroscience. There was a session about it. There was also something about neuroethics, which a roundtable which was organized, were very well attended and also very lively. So these were great moments, I think.
Thank you very much. And I wonder, Irene, are you actually Jean-Antoine's negative at the moment, that the burden, the weight of responsibility is falling upon you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, actually, I feel very buzzed, and but I am definitely, intimidated by the big shoes that I have to fill with Jean-Antoine Giroux, having done such a fantastic job, not just in leading for this amazing forum, but the 2 years of presidency in really difficult circumstances with everybody still largely in lockdown.
Yes, it's quite a long. It's a slow burn, isn't it? It's quite a long run up. I mean, but it goes really quickly.
It does. I mean, the 2 year sort of handover gives actually the president-elect time to get to know everybody in the office, and obviously we've had changes there as well, and to get to know sort of a little bit more about the operation behind the scenes that underpins and supports all the activities for FENS. So in many ways that's been a really helpful preparatory, and then the forum is a wonderful time and place to hand over because it means that you sort of launch yourself in your presidency on a high, having had what has been the most successful meeting that we've had, with a great sense of energy, sense of togetherness again as a neuroscience community. So that gives myself and obviously the new team coming in, so we've got a wonderful new team coming in, and of course the executive office, a great platform from which we can continue and hopefully build FENS stronger and better, and also just in an era now where we can gather and we can meet more regularly. So this is the start of this new era in post-pandemic life.
So as you contemplate the presidency, you've just enjoyed the forum for this time. What are the highlights? Your personal highlights?
So the highlights for me for the meeting, I think actually Jean-Antoine touched on a couple of them, apart from of course the outstanding plenary lecturers, and I should give all kudos and credit to Angela Roberts, who's been the programme chair and the programme committee, for putting on a stellar lineup of speakers and symposium speakers, and all the people who've come and really just knocked it out the park in terms of their presentations and their interaction. I think going forward we're very keen not only just to continue and grow back again all the activities that we do normally at FENS. We are here to serve the neuroscience community. I should remind the listener that's our purpose, and that's what we want to do, is to support people in all the different activities that we're able to do. But there's some new initiatives that again we can help hopefully lead on, and we can be sort of figureheads in terms of championing certain things. And for me personally, I'm very keen on the sustainability questions. So it's not just about the sustainable labs and how we need to take that forward. I'm sure for the listeners, all their countries and their research councils in their countries are having the same discussions and debates. So this is something that, again, the timing is now for us to start to think, as an organisation that represents neuroscience in Europe, how can we really lead the charge in helping set some of the sort of guidelines around how to do that. But also for future meetings, there is a concern, rightly, for our faculty coming in about wanting maybe not to fly so much, or to think about again the environment and again offsetting. So although in this meeting we've had the biggest turnout because people were clearly really keen to get out and come and meet, going forward that might be not the case, and we need to be able to think about how we can provide again a meeting where that combined maybe hybrid model of in presence but also online, but a good interactive online is possible, such that we can again in the future think about how we can still have that sense of togetherness and networking and conversation around neuroscience whilst fulfilling people's, genuine concerns around, the environment and sustainability. So that's something we'll have to think about and take forward in FENS. And I was chairing this neuroethics workshop yesterday. So again, that's another area that in my own work in pain and neuroimaging and brain reading, I've come across quite closely in terms of the neuroethical implications of, again, using certain technologies for certain outcomes. So this was a very well-attended and lively discussion and workshop we had yesterday with a lot of enthusiasm to really take that forward now in this next couple of years in terms of how we want to, again, educate, train the next generation of neuroscientists to think about the neuroethical implications of their work or their technologies, such that we can, again, be responsible neuroscientists going forward. So these will be a couple of things that, again, I'll do my best to champion and work with the FENS office to take forward.
Well, Mr. President Jean-Antoine Giraud, thank you very much. And incoming President Irene Tracy, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Dr. Yoav Livner is giving a talk today. He's group leader at the Weizmann Institute in Israel, and his lab focuses on understanding the brain-body interactions. We spoke to him a little while before the start of the forum.
When I started working on the insular cortex, it was really from the perspective of motivations. And we were inspired by work in the addiction field, which is obviously substance abuse addiction can cause very strong motivations for specific things. But as I worked on it more and more, I grew less and less satisfied with understanding how these motivations came from. So obviously a lot of these motivations come from needs. And then if you want to understand the needs arise from specific deficits in the body. And then if you want to know how that works, you actually need to understand how these deficits are sensed. And then how does the brain interpret sensing of these deficits? And then also what does the brain do with that to eventually fulfill the need, right? Beyond just creating a motivation. So this is how, sort of through motivation, I gradually got into thinking about sensing of changes in the body, and also how the brain then fulfills these needs and causes other changes. So in the longer run, I think understanding brain-body communication is and will be critical for understanding a wide variety of mental health conditions. Because if you, and there have been there's been a lot of recent reviews, a lot of interesting literature on this recently about how basically many psychiatric conditions involve changes in brain-body communication. So and this might be trivial for some people and not for others. The fact that the brain and the body always communicate means that they are always affecting either consciously or subconsciously our behavior. So I think developing powerful animal models that are still linked to the clinic and to the human condition is the way to go. And I think these animal models, there are different models that have different advantages. And if I can circle back to the symposium, I think this is really why we created the symposium, in which we are, we invited people who work in fruit flies and in mice and in humans to be able to create the common grounds to make us all sort of use the same conceptual framework, the same models, but on the other hand, also highlight what each model can actually contribute in a way that is unique to that model. I think the key challenge really is to have a much deeper understanding of brain-body communication. And of course, this is something, it's sort of a trivial blanket statement you can say, but every field wants to have a deeper understanding of itself. But I think for brain-body communication, for a long time, we've been impeded by a lack of technology and lack of ways to manipulate and probe specific sensory changes in the body. So we've basically been stuck on that. And I think now we have a lot more experimental power in what we can do with new molecular and genetic and optogenetic and, other optical tools. So we can do a lot in manipulating the periphery, and also, again, combining that with all the amazing tools we have at the level of the brain for sort of standard systems neuroscience. So I think the challenge is to actually take advantage of all these things and as a field and move forward. But I think still this is a general statement for neuroscience, but specifically also for brain-body communication. I think it's going to be critical to do that in a way that builds on a very explicit conceptual framework, so that we all use specific models and that we all sort of think about what things mean and try to challenge these models, test hypotheses, refute these hypotheses, find other ones, rather than sort of this completely random way.
Now, we've been trying to feature some of the incredible background activity that makes this forum possible. And today I thought we should focus on a couple of the people from KENNES, the people who deal with all the logistical nuts and bolts. And I started by talking to Svetlana Barova, who is a registration specialist for the KENNES group.
Basically, we are in touch with the delegates. We are the people who are really communicating with the delegates who wants to attend.
What was it like on the first day when the people actually start to arrive and huge numbers started pouring into them? I mean, how did you feel?
To be honest, this is my first event with such a capacity. We have around 8,000 delegates coming on site for FENS. And I didn't know what to expect, because for me the number is huge. But the FENS crowd is amazing. They are people who really, the crowd is very young and they are really organized, so everything was really smooth, but you can see the enthusiasm. I think after COVID, people are really willing to come together and to participate on site.
Now, I know you're specialists in sorting problems out, but do you ever have problems that make you feel stressed, on behalf of the delegates?
Of course, sometimes we are trying to do our best because there is a schedule with sessions, so everyone wants to be on time so they don't miss an important session. So the challenge for me is to be very quick in assisting a huge amount of people. But I think we did great. We didn't have any major issues, and I think everyone is really happy and satisfied so far. So
that's perfect. Well, thank you very much for what you do. It's incredibly much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gil Orevi. I am the project manager on behalf of KENNES International. KENNES are the FENS PCO. We organize their events, forums, and other meetings. And my job is to manage the entire project.
Now, I have to tell you, Gil, that your name comes up a lot. People are going, we better talk to Gil about that. We better get Gil to sort that out. A lot of pressure on you.
You do have a lot of pressure in this job. I'm involved in every single function that happened since we moved in for setup on July 7th. I am involved in all of it, if it's on-site, which means in the venue, or off-site in all of the satellite networking and social events that happened in the last few days. So yes, I guess you heard my name a lot because a lot of people I've been in touch with in the last 5 months.
I have to say, I've always heard your name said in a very positive way.
I am glad to hear that, no question. It was a fun project to work on. It was challenging, no doubt, because it's a big project. It has a lot of different functions, a lot of different owners for the different functions. But I think it turned out well. I hope.
How do you cope personally with the stress of this? Because, for example, you find that a big sound desk has gone down for a large event. These kinds of things happen, or a line doesn't work if somebody's coming in from a remote place, to give a lecture or something like that. How do you, and everybody's looking to you to sort this out, how do you cope with this, the stress of it personally?
I think it has a lot to do with the planning part of the different functions, because there are things that you can control, like planning it correctly so the AV, the audiovisual aspect of every function will match what's needed. And there are things that are not under my control. If a plane doesn't take off in time and a speaker doesn't come in, there isn't much I can do about it. So I try not to get stressed out of it. So that's the way I look at it, and I try to keep the stress level as low as I can.
So Gil, the event is winding down now. This is the last day. All the delegates are going home, but it's not quite so straightforward for you, is it? There's an awful lot of sorting out to do after the event.
Yeah. First of all, once the event will close down, it's dismantling time. That every single supplier in the venue needs to come in, pick up his material, his stuff, any leftovers, any cleaning to do. I guess that if we'll finish by 2 p.m. for the event itself, the forum, we'll be out of here by around midnight or so, when everything has been cleared out and we gave back the keys to the building back to the expo.
From your point of view, have you had a good forum?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. The way that people look after 2.5 years of COVID going around, people wanted to come in to meet each other, to see each other. So we did have a lot of participants coming in. And the team that I was working with, both from KNS and from the different suppliers on site, were great. They were all very flexible. They got so many different requests during the forum itself, and still everybody coped with it, and everybody found a solution on time.
And while we're recording the interview, I can tell that you're needed already. So
yes.
No rest for you. Gil, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. Have a safe travel back.
José Alain Sahal spoke at the forum yesterday. He's a clinician scientist who specializes in retinal degeneration.
My interest in working on these conditions is that these are blinding conditions, and which is what people call unmet needs, but it means many patients that you are encountering in the clinic and you have nothing to propose. So over the past 30 years, a lot of understanding of this condition and the pathobiology, but more importantly, being part of the adventure of developing new therapies has been extremely exciting. So it's both trying to cope with clinical situations and all the enthusiasm that is generated by a very fast evolving field with new therapies emerging, and being part of that is wonderful. Yeah, my plan for this talk is to describe the pathway that led from a very basic science discovery that was really made by scientists working on psychophysics and biophysics, actually, not anything to do with clinical care, towards the development of a therapy for patients. But then I will probably put some emphasis on patient experience, how to measure the impact on daily life activities in patients, and how to develop what we call outcome measures that would meaningfully measure and determine the impact of these therapies for patients, because what we view as a scientific advancement has to be a real progress for their lives. The only thing I would like to add is that the work I'm going to talk about is a collaborative work with many people, and I want especially to mention Boton Roska from Basel. We work together on that. It's not only a scientific adventure, but also a personal friendship that led to this type of discoveries. And I think in science, this is also the fun part, is that it's a long journey. So when you have good friends and people you can trust and you can work together and collaborate, you get a lot of expertise from many people. And this blends into some sort of very nice joint effort that eventually brings progress to people. So I want to mention all the collaborators from the Vision Institute in Paris, GenSat Biology, the company, and especially Boton Roska.
Where are you from?
I'm from Germany, from the beautiful city of Bonn. Exhausted, but it was great fun. I mean, I learned a lot, and great experience.
It was really great to have the forum again after the COVID pandemic, so it was working very well.
I come from Lebanon, but I'm currently doing my master's in Paris. It was amazing, as I had the chance to meet some of the authors of the recent papers I had read. I also had the chance to connect and discuss with people with similar interests from all over the world.
The forum is going really well. Yes, I really like it. I take a lot of posters and I assist some talks that I like a lot, and I learn a lot.
Hello, I'm from EPFL in Switzerland. It's been really great. Attended some amazing, interesting sessions and met up with people I haven't seen for 2 years, so lots of networking as well.
It's been a fun experience getting to meet a lot of my collaborators and a lot of the people around me who work with me and who do research, and getting to interact with so many interesting people has been the best part.
I'm from Paris. It's super exciting. Actually, it's the first time I really do such a huge thing. I'm in my first year of PhD, so it's super cool to see what everybody is doing, to have the opportunity to present my poster. It was super exciting, super stimulating, super helpful for a lot of things, and super tiring. I'm exhausted. This is super requiring in terms of concentration and everything. So I'm really tired. Now I need to sleep, but it was super interesting.
Well, that's it. It's time to go home from the FENS Forum 2022. It's been a wonderful forum here at the Paris Convention Centre. Thank you so much for listening, and have yourself a very good evening.
This podcast was presented by Malcolm Love with some interviews by Daniela Dominguez, Pranav Chintamani Joshi, and Armel Rancillac. It was produced for the FENS Forum 2022 by Solid Gold Hats.